Welcome to rpgamepire. I'm David, and now I'm going to do the how to play video of Mythic Battles Pantheon version 1.5. So if you back the 1.0 edition, hopefully you got your 1.5 upgrade pack as you see here. If you haven't had a chance, please check out our playthrough video and our review video. And we also did an unboxing of the 1.5 upgrade pack and the two other miniatures that it came with. So you'll see here is the new 1.5 rulebook. However, we're going to be using the 1.0 getting started scenario. And the difference between this and the regular scenarios is that you only need to get two Umphalas to win. So you'll see right here the setup. You place 3 Umphalas. The first one to get 2 absorbed 2 Umphalas by their divinity, their god, will win, or if the divinity is destroyed. In this case, it's Aries versus Zeus. So if Aries is destroyed, Zeus wins. Or if Zeus absorbs 2 Umphalos, divine stones, Zeus would win. Now you're going to see that, just like in the 1.0, it comes with a handy player's aid. However, I downloaded it through Adobe Acrobat and added some notes to it. Now I cannot distribute this because Monolith owns the copyright to this, and because I modified it, I didn't create this. So don't ask me to distribute it unless I had Monolith's permission. I guess I pronounced that wrong, Monolith. All right, so I'm going to be referring to this, and I'll point out where I added any notes, and I also did some highlighting in different colors. By the way, I don't know, for those of you who are the new 1.5 backers, if the getting started is shipped with your 1.5 core set. For instance, I know that the core set does not include these rocks, 3D elements, but I'm including them here for the 1.0 backers. It was hard to actually put together. I had to use glue dots to keep it together. So that's one thing that's going to be different here. For the 1.5 backers, you're not going to get these rocks. But back to what I was saying, you can download this getting started guide. I just checked it right now. It is available. It hasn't been updated. It's still the 2018 edition, version 1.0. So someone maybe can tell me in the description, for those of you who got the new 1.5 core set, if it even shipped with a getting started guide, and if it did, is it upgraded? Is it different than the one that's online? I don't know, because I don't have the 1.5 core set. All right, so I already went over the victory conditions. Absorb 2 divine stones, or 2 what are called Umphalas in this edition. They'll be called something else in the Viking edition, and supposedly there's an Egyptian edition coming out where they'll be called something else as well. So divine stones is the universal term, but for the Greek it's Umphalos. All right, so let's take a look at the starting armies. So what they'll show you here in a scenario. They'll give you the map and how to set it up, and it has this where you put your starting forces, so it'll be flipped like this. Achilles, Aries, and the Hoplites will be on this side of the board. The Hydra, Zeus, and the Spartans will be on this side. However, we're going to play with the 1.5 rules, where troops are placed first, troop units. And I've only marked the starting locations here. This is not necessarily a deployment zone marker. I'm just using random markers. Maybe there is a specific deployment zone marker that I'm not aware of. I'm just using markers that the game came with just to help me keep track of where the deployment zones are. So when you set up the board, though, you look at the 3D elements. Again, these rocks aren't in the 1.5 edition, but I'm putting them here. I put the Umphalas where they're supposed to go. Each rune space gets 1 column. Each woodland space gets as many trees divided by 2. So if it says a 2 here, 2 into 2 is 1, and then you round up if it's not an even number. So there might be a 3 over here. 3 rounded up would be 2 trees. So you place as many trees into the space, the numbered space divided by 2. And you'll see here on the on the player's aid, again, I removed the background color and I emphasize certain things. So it'll have a number here of 4. You divide that by 2, and that's how many trees. And the same thing here for the ruins. It doesn't matter what the number is, that you get 1 column, no matter what the number is in the space. And by the way, what are these numbers for? That tells you how many units can fit in that space. Unless you're playing with the new, I'd have to look at what creature this falls into, but there's a new type of, I got to find it here, class called huge. And so a huge unit can never enter an area with an area capacity lower than 3. So that's something new. So these numbers here tells you the capacity. Just so you know, a troop unit, doesn't matter how many miniatures are in the troop unit, it counts as 1 unit. So as you see here, I have my Spartans. And if you look at the anatomy of a card, the Spartans here tell me that there are 3 Spartan miniatures, and there will be 3 cards that you get for the Spartans. So here are my 3 cards that will be part of my deck. I'll put that off to the side here. Zeus gets 4 cards and 2 Art of War cards. So here are the 4 cards I put in the deck here, and 2 Art of War cards. The Hydra also gets 4 cards, but no Art of War cards. And it's labeled a monster here. That's what that symbol means. Zeus's symbol. See, I guess it doesn't... the color shows you that it's a god, a divinity. And this is a troop unit. They come on regular cards. So I add these to the deck as well. So here's the Zeus deck. And then you always... So you're going to shuffle up your deck. You get 3 Art of War cards to start, and I'll explain what you do with those. So I'm shuffling up my starting cards, and I'll draw 3 more as my starting hand. So 3 Art of War cards plus 3 cards that I draw. So there's my starting hand. I did not draw a Zeus card, but there's a way to alleviate that. So I'm going to play these open so you can see. So right away I know as the Zeus player, that's me. I'm going to be the Zeus player, and Julie will be Aries, because you'll see that in the playthrough video. Other things you should be aware of on the card since we're looking at it. Here are powers, and I'll go over what these symbols mean in a minute. And here are talents. Powers can be used depending on if you're doing a simple action or a complex action, or if it's a permanent power. But again, I'll go over that later. So powers for the Hydra, talent for Hydra. Here's the talent for the troop unit. And for each Spartan, they'll get +1 attack die. So if I go in with all 3 Spartans into an attack, we'll get 3 extra dice. Normally it gets 2 dice, we'll get an extra 3. So it'd be 5. But if there was only 2 left, now here's something in the rules that it's not very clear of, and I've checked on the Kickstarter and on Board Game Geek. There is, the way the rule is written, and I'm going to point this out now because it's not very clear for me anyway, and a couple other people asked the same question, and as of early September here, I don't have an answer for this. But when you're talking about troop units, it's important to keep track of how many units you have left, because you can lose your talents. I'm sorry, you can lose your talents if you don't have enough left. So let's take a look at that rule here on page 9 of the new rulebook. It says here, talents. A troop unit is no longer complete, and there is only 1 miniature left of the troop. That troop's talents can no longer be used. So compared to the 1.0 rules, if you just lost 1 miniature of the unit, you lost your talent. But according to this here, it sounds like you can have 1 miniature left. I'm sorry, you can have 2 or more left and still retain your talents. But once you get down to 1, you lose your talent. So hopefully I'm playing that right. Maybe there's going to be an errata for that. I'm just not sure because of the way it reads. So let me know down in the comments if I'm not reading that right. So the point is of that is that a troop is a unit. All three will move together on the board. And in terms of the setup, each player, starting with the lead player, will deploy their troops first. So they get basically a free activation. So as Zeus, I'm going to deploy my Spartans here in this space. And this space can hold 3 units. Spartans considered 1 unit, even though those 3 miniatures. So I can put up to 2 more miniatures in that space, or 2 more units. Sorry, 2 more units. Now let's take a look at Aries setup. So Aries is over here. Let me take off the picture-in-picture. Aries has 5 Hoplites. As you see here, they get 3 cards. So here are the 3 cards. They have 5 miniatures, and if this troop contains at least 4 Hoplites, they'll get a ranged attack of +1, and +1 to their attack, so it would be 3 + 1, 4 dice to attack, and be able to hit. Normally they can only hit at a range 0, but if there's 4 of them, they'll be able to hit at a range +1. Here is Aries. Here's Aries powers. Aries gets 5 cards. So there's Aries 5 cards. Achilles is also in place. Achilles gets 4 cards. So here's the deck starting right there. And 2 Art of War cards. So here's the starting deck for the Aries player in this scenario, which is Julie in this case. So you'll see here, again, here's the powers, the talents, and a special condition here. So the Hoplites will keep guard until there's only 1 left, then they'll lose that talent. But this special situation here is only in effect as long as there's at least 4. By the way, you keep track of your vitality here in the middle by sliding it down. So if it ever drops down to this and then takes 1 more hit, in this case, this is a hero based on the color. Achilles is a hero. Achilles would be out. If you slide it all the way down and then take 1 more wound. Okay. So Aries. So again, remember, each player starts out with 3 Art of War cards. We'll shuffle it up. Aries, Julie will draw 3 more cards. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So here is Julie's beginning hand. Did not draw a Hoplite, which is kind of a bummer, because the Hoplites are going to start out on the board. It might be nice to be able to move them. So let's see where Julie's going to place the Hoplites in either this deployment zone or this deployment zone. So she's going to place them here. Remember, all 5 have to stick together. You can't split them up. So remember, in the 1.0 rules, troops have to be, well, first off, in the scenario, in this particular scenario, they all start out deployed, okay? But again, we're playing the 1.5 rules, so we're modifying the scenario where troops are placed first as a free activation, are deployed first, and then now first with the lead player, then the second player, and then it will be the lead player's turn. So let's talk a little bit about how a turn is organized. It's basically activations. And you're going to draw a card first on your turn. If you decide not to activate a unit using a card, you can draw a second card. So I'll draw a card, then decide, am I going to activate a unit by playing a card, and if not, draw a second card, and then your turn ends. So let's first draw the card, starting with Zeus. Now again, remember, unlike the traditional scenario, we're only playing, you have to get 2 divine stones to win. Normally it's 4. So here is the Zeus player. This is what the Zeus player has. First, we're going to draw a card. And got another Hydra. Still no Zeus. Okay, so I could end my turn right now and just draw another card to have more options. But we're going to activate something. So let's take a look at that on the player sheet here. So the turn sequence is, well, first off, you need to see if there's any powers in play from the previous turn. There's no gods or heroes that have powers that carry over to the following turn. That would be in different scenarios, playing with different units. So we drew our card, and then we decide whether to pass or continue. So again, if you pass, you draw another card. But we're going to continue. We're going to activate. So you discard one activation card, and then decide what you're going to do with that unit. You're going to do a complex action or a simple action. If you do a simple action, you can do 0, 1, or 2 simple actions. If you do a complex action, you only do 0 or 1 complex action. Now, why would they say 0? Because you can activate a unit to use one of its powers, but not do any complex or simple actions. So sometimes you just want to activate a unit to use a power, or use a talent, for instance. But in this case, we are going to be doing simple actions and complex actions so we can get to those omphalos. So let's take a look here. What are the differences in actions? Well, if you take a simple action, you could walk, attack, and claim. Now, a very important rule to remember is, if you attack, you can't walk afterwards. You can only do one of the. You can only do each of these once. So you can't walk, or attack, or claim. You can claim then walk, or walk then claim, attack and claim, but you can't walk. I'm sorry, you can't attack then walk. So in other words, you can't move after attacking. Complex actions, you can only do one of these. You could run, which means you get +1 on your movement. Deploy, that means you come into the game in a deployment zone and then you're done. Or you can absorb and unfollow. So you have to be able to you can absorb one in your space if it's unclaimed, or if one of your allies has it, you can claim it from them. Absorb it from them if they're in the same space as you. So let's take a look at the board here. We have the Spartans. So I'm going to play a Spartan card to activate them. So I discard it. So, and now I think about what I want to do. Remember, I want to get these omphalos before Aries does. So they're going to do a simple action of walk. Now, how do I know how far they can walk? Let's take a look at the card. This is attack, how many dice you roll. This is defense. This is the number you have to equal to or exceed to wound somebody. This is the range of your attack. So Spartans have to be in the same space as someone else, or be adjacent to a space that's full, which I'll explain in a little bit, and they can move one area. So they can only walk one space. Now, if they run as a complex action, they can move +1. So they can move 2 areas, but then they'll be done for the round because you can't do 2 complex actions. So the Spartans did one simple action of walking, and the second action is claiming the omphalos. Now, why would you want to claim it? Because when you claim it, the only way to make someone lose it is to do a mighty throw and make them drop it. There might be some other powers that I'm not aware of yet with other gods and heroes and monsters that can make you drop it. But right now, in this scenario, the only way you can make somebody drop an omphalos that's claimed is to do a mighty throw, and then you'd have to drop it. So let me show you where it says that, where I had to modify this so I don't forget that. So if you do a talent, so on the second side is talent, and you look up mighty throw, I had to look up in the rules what happens and added here. I added the little comment here. You drop the omphalos if you are thrown from a mighty throw. And I'll go over that in a minute, how mighty throw works. So that's why I'm running into the space, is to claim that, so that way if Zeus goes into that space, he can do a complex action and absorb the omphalos, or the Spartans can move into Zeus's space, Zeus activates and absorbs the omphalos with a complex action. But right now, the Spartans have moved in, and you can walk and claim. You can also walk and attack. As I said before, though, you can't attack then walk, but you can attack and claim. I know I'm repeating myself, but there's people that will miss that detail. All right, so now I have a decision to make as Zeus player. I've activated my Spartans. I can stop right here, because you can only activate 2 units a turn. The first unit, you just play the card. But if you want to activate a second unit, you have to discard an Art of War card first, and then that card. So it can get kind of expensive. So I only have, with Zeus, 2 Art of War cards and the 3 that I begin with. I only have 5 Art of War cards. Now the deck can recycle, but this is cards that I don't necessarily want to get rid of right away. I may want to save those Art of War cards later, because one thing you can do with Art of War cards at any time on your turn or another player's turn, you can do what's called maneuvers. So even though I can discard an Art of War card now and activate a unit, I may want to save that Art of War card for maneuvers. So let me show you what that is. So you can discard an Art of War card, an Omphalos. So when you absorb an Omphalos, when your divinity absorbs it, so if Zeus absorbs that, you get an Omphalos added to your hand, and it's like an Art of War card. You could also remove this card from the game, put it back in the box, and then heal a vitality for that divinity if you remove it from the game. You could also discard 2 cards of a destroyed unit. So if my Hydra dies, the cards are kind of worthless in my hand, but not really, because I could use 2 of them to do a maneuver. So what is the maneuvers? And I could do that. Now again, I had to add this here. You can only do a maneuver of each type on your turn or on another player's turn. So you can't discard an Art of War card, draw 2 cards, and discard another one, draw 2 cards. You can only do one of these. So I could discard an Art of War card to get 2 cards. And I could also discard another Art of War card to search my deck for a card that I want. And if we were playing with flying units, you can evade a non-range 0 attack, but we're not playing with flying units. So that's where I added this rule here about you can also discard an Omphalos to heal one, not discard, remove an Omphalos to heal 1 divinity. So this is not on the player aid. Neither is this. You can only use each one per round. So on my turn, I can discard a Art of War card to draw 2 cards, and on Julie's turn, I can do it again if I want to. But I can't repeat the same maneuver on my turn or repeat the same maneuver on Julie's turn. So again, I just want to go over there. Oops. Sorry about that. I wanted to go over there. Why Art of War cards are so valuable, because you're going to need to use them to activate a second unit, to do maneuvers, and it's also to use some powers. So for instance, let's go over that here for Zeus. If Zeus were to discard 2 Art of War cards, he can do an offensive. That's what that lightning bolt means. An offensive action. So he can make an X dice range 3 area attack. And what is that? That lightning bolt is equal to the number here in the slider. He can roll 9 dice. As he gets wounded, he'll get down to 7, and then eventually, if he's wounded really bad, he can't do that lightning attack anymore. So he'll lose powers as he gets wounded. So that's one reason to save your Art of War cards, so you can use them to activate powers. So let's go over these symbols real quick. It's still Zeus's turn, but here's an important thing to keep in mind. Offensive power, active power, and passive power cannot be used if you do a complex action. So if Zeus was in the game and he decides, and he has a movement of 2, so I'll show that real quick here. He has a movement of 2, and he wanted to take a run action and get a +1 movement. So he's here, he's going to run 1, 2, 3. he would be done because that's a complex action. And because he used a complex action, he cannot use any offensive powers, active powers, or passive powers. Now, he only has an offensive power and a passive power, so he could not use either one of those if he did a complex action. So, if he deploys this round, if I had a Zeus card, if he deployed, I bring him into the game, he's pretty much done because you can only, when you take a complex action, you can't do any other actions really. So I'm losing my train of thought here. So you take a complex action, you can't, by deploying, for instance, he comes into the game, which means then he could not deploy and then do his lightning attack because you can't use offensive, active, or passive powers when you use a complex action. If he absorbs the Umphalos here, say he already started here, actually, let's say the previous turn he moved into here, and the next turn he activates again, and he absorbs that Umphalos because it didn't even, it matters if it's, it could be in the space or claimed by an ally, he can absorb it. Then that would be a complex action, he'd be done. He can't do a lightning attack after that either, or even run after that, because absorbing is a complex action and you get one per turn. But the things that you can get despite complex actions, again, this is why I highlighted it here. You can use your permanent regardless if you take a complex action or not. So who has a permanent power in the game? That would be Achilles. So Achilles, doesn't matter if he uses a complex action or not, he always has this active. Achilles ignores the first wound caused by each attack. So it's basically going to take 2 wounds to damage Achilles because the first one will be absorbed. So it doesn't matter if he does a complex action, he will always have that on. So now I've gone over the different powers when you take a complex action, how it affects things. You still get your powers if you do simple actions. And so it doesn't matter usually what order you go in. But let's go back now to Zeus's turn. Zeus activated the Spartan, as you remember. So now I have a decision to make. I could bring in the Hydra if I spend an Art of War card. But you know what? I'm going to do a maneuver. I'm going to spend an Art of War card, search my deck for Zeus. Okay, I grab Zeus. I take Zeus, shuffle up my deck. Now I'm going to spin an Art of War card to activate a second unit. Now keep in mind that you cannot activate the same unit twice. When you do a second activation, it has to be a different unit, unless they have some kind of power, which you see with Aries here. I'll go over that in a moment. But anyways, I'm spinning another activation card to activate a second unit. I'm going to activate Zeus. So now Zeus is going to deploy, which is a complex action right here. So Zeus can go in this deployment zone or this one. He'll go here so he's near the Spartans. Now the last thing that you have to consider every time you end your turn is if you want to recall troops. Now this is an important rule that we've gotten wrong in the past. Basically a god can recall troop units. So that's, in this scenario, it's only Spartans for Zeus and only the Hoplites for Aries. It doesn't matter if they're damaged, destroyed, or complete. The reason why this is an important rule to remember is that if you recall a troop, they drop any Umphalos they have claimed. So you can't, this is something I did in a scenario once where I recalled troops to get them really quick to Zeus. That was an illegal move. So again, if you recall a troop, whether they're damaged, meaning they've lost a miniature or two, totally destroyed, they're out of the game, you can recall them back and get them back in the game, or if they're undamaged at all. So let me show you where that is on the chart here. So we did our first start of the turn, drew a card, first activation, we did a second activation, end of phase. So this is right here where I had to add the note, you drop the Umphalos if you recall them. So just to reiterate, let's say I did do that. I'd have to spend an Art of War card to recall them. They drop, then follow us and go where Zeus is. Now, another rule you got to remember is that you can't do that if the space is full. That space is not full. You can fit 3 units in there. Zeus is only 1. There was 2 more spots. The Spartans are recalled. They fit, and there's still 1 more space. I could put the Hydra in there next turn if I wanted to. But I'm not going to do that because they would drop it. But let's say my Spartans are killed by Aries. They're out of the game, and I'm over here. You know, I at the end of my turn, I do a recall action. I spend that Art of War card. I recall them right to me to help, even if they're even if they're destroyed. All right, so that's something to remember at the end of your turn. A divinity can do that, recall troops. Now, does it say how many you can do? This says discard 1. So in some scenarios, you can have multiple troops. So according to that rule, you know, say I had Spartans and Hoplites, and you're both, I can't recall both of them. I can spend 1 Art of War card and recall 1 of them to the divinity. All right, so let's take a look at Aries now. Zeus is done. Zeus couldn't activate any more units even if he wanted to, because he's already activated 2, and that's the most you can do in a round. All right, so let's take a look at Aries now. Aries has basically cards for everybody except the Hoplites, which is the bummer, because the Hoplites are over here, ready to move and try to claim an unfollow. So since we don't have a Hoplite card, well, first off, we draw a card. I might be able to get one. And look, I got a Hoplite. All right. So I almost forgot. Oops, let me show that on camera. I almost forgot the sequence here. I have to draw a card at the beginning of my turn. And look, I got my Hoplite card. So I play the Hoplite card. And they're going to move all 5 right here. Now the Hoplites could instead attack the Spartans because you have 2 simple actions. So the Hoplites move into here. Walk is the first simple action. They could claim the Umphalos as their second simple action, or they could attack the Spartans. But normally units have to be in the same space with a range 0 attack. But you may remember that the Hoplites, there's at least 4, they get a +1 range. So let's do that. Let's do an attack. Let's break it up a little bit here. Well, first off, let me show you how many dice I'm going to roll. So I get 3 dice, so I take 3 dice. And +1 die, because there's 4 or more. And they can hit the Spartans at 1 area away. And let's look at what the Spartans, if they have any special powers. I'm sorry, talents. The Spartans have Mighty Throw and Guard. So Mighty Throw is only a range 0 ability, and Guard is only a range 0 ability as well. So if you want to look those up, look on the back here, and it will say Mighty Throw. Well, I misspoke. When I said it's a range 0 ability, it has to be, the unit can use their dice with blank results from their first assault to throw their target 1 area. I'll go over blank results in a minute. Now I looked this up in the rulebook. Because the Hydra has a +1 range, and it makes sense that they can pick up stuff and do a Mighty Throw. But see, this isn't yeah. The reason why I'm puzzled on this is it makes sense that the Spartans can do a Mighty Throw, because what's going to happen is the Hoplites are going to do their range 1 attack. And then I just solved the problem. Okay. See, this game has important details. And I'm thinking through this here. When you do a range attack, the defending unit does not get a retaliation, so therefore they can't get Mighty Throw. The only time that a unit will get retaliation is if it's a range 0 attack. So because the Hoplites are doing a ranged 1 attack, the Spartans do not get their Mighty Throw. And by the way, what guard does allows them to, say the Hoplites were targeting Zeus, the Spartans can step in front of Zeus and take the attack instead. But that as well, is that, let me see if guard, yeah, so they can use guard against a ranged attack, so they could step in front and protect Zeus. Doesn't say you can't do that there. All right. So here we are. We have the Hoplites. They're not going to claim the Omphalos. They're going to do a ranged attack against the Spartans. And they get 4 dice. So let's roll this in the area of the Hoplites. All right, so the Spartans have a defense of 6. So you have to get, the Hoplites have to get a 6 or higher to wound them. Well, first off, the blank results are only useful if you get a Mighty Throw. So that's removed. Again, we're doing a range attack. And they don't even have Mighty Throw. They have guard, though. Okay. So we got a 4, a 4, and a 5. And by the way, the dice only go from 1 to 5 with a blank. So how can you even hit somebody with a 6? Well, that's because when you get a 5, you put it off to the side and you will roll it again in your second assault and add to the results. So I would roll this die again, and whatever I get, I'd add to the 5. So if I got a 3, for instance, it would become an 8, because a 5 plus, if I rolled a 3, would be 8, and that would exceed a 6. However, if I got a blank on the second assault, I basically missed. Okay. But I have 2 4s here, so I have an option. Dice can be used as +1. Right now, I can add, well, it would be a waste to do that. I can add a 4, add this die to make this a 6 right now. But why would I do that when I know I'm going to, well, no, actually it makes sense to maybe do that because I could roll a blank. So if I want to make sure I hit, I will add 1 die in. Doesn't matter what, as long as it's a 1 through 5, I could add it in to make this a 6 right now and hit the Spartan. But instead, I'm going to add to this die and make this a 5. So I remove this die to get the +1 bonus to make that 4 or 5. So now I have 2 5s I'm going to re-roll. As long as I don't get blanks, I will get a 6 or higher. And I did. So now with troop units, each wound removes a unit. So now the Spartans just lost this ability. They don't have Mighty Throw or Guard anymore because we're down to 1 unit. And but they will get +1 for each Spartan still. So if that single Spartan will get to roll 3 dice. So this is where Zeus might want to do a recall action. And so if Zeus were to do that next turn, drop the Omphalos, they would come back here with the 2 that were destroyed, and it would be a full unit again. So that was, I'll go over Comet again. I know it was a little confusing. So the Hoplites walked in and did a ranged attack against the Spartans. The Spartans don't get a Mighty Throw because you would have to, in order to do a Mighty Throw, you have to retaliate. And you can only retaliate, that means the defender attacks after the offense. You only get a retaliation, as I'll show you here. And it's right over here after the attack sequence. If the defender is the target of a ranged aerial attack, they can retaliate. That means they get to attack too. So how will that look? Let's say the Hoplites did move into the space. Okay. The Hoplites were here. Now the Spartan would get to attack. And the Spartan, unfortunately, lost 2 troops. So the Spartan would have 2 dice +1 for each Spartan. So let's say, for the sake of purposes, the Hoplites started out in this deployment zone, walked in here and did a range 0 attack. Not the best move though, because the range 0 attack, well actually you still get it. You don't have to be 1 away to get this, so they still get +1 die. They still would have rolled 4 die, so that's okay. So, but let's say the Hoplites did that. It's better that they're 1 space away so that the Spartan can retaliate. But let's say they did move in there and did a range 0 attack. So now the Spartan retaliates. 2 blanks, which is a shame because they could have thrown to do a mighty throw. You can throw a troop. You only need 1 blank result to throw a troop or a hero, or 2 for a monster or a god, or 3 for a titan. And that's where they would drop the Unfollows. But roll 2 blanks and roll a 5. What do I need to hit the Hoplite? A 5. So there's no reason to roll a second assault. They automatically hit. So 1 unit's killed under this situation. Let's say there was 2 Spartans left, and they did roll, the 2 blanks would apply. The Spartans could then mighty throw them to any space. Let's say they throw them back here, behind here. So let's say for the sake of argument here, there was 2 Spartans left, and I got at least 1 blank result and threw them back there. And you still carry out the rest of the attack. The wounds still apply. It's just that now the Hoplites are spaced away from anything else going around here. Now order does happen. It does matter because Aries has a power. Let me show that here. Of initiative. And so does Achilles. By the way, block means that if an enemy unit starts in the space with you, you can keep them in that space. You could also prevent a unit moving through your space. Initiative means that you get retaliation first on a range 0 attack before the attacker does their assault first. So let's take a look at that situation. Let's say Aries was in the game. The Spartans down to 2 says, I'm going to attack Aries. Aries goes, no, I'm going to do my retaliation first. So Aries, because of initiative, will get 8 dice here first. And if he gets any blank results, you'll see what happens. So Aries will go first with his initiative because it's a range 0 attack. Because the Spartans declared a range 0 attack in the same space as Aries. So here's Aries' roll. No blank results. Now Aries only needs to get a 6 or higher. So it didn't get any 5s, but I can make this a 5 by removing this one, this 1 die. It doesn't matter if it's a 1. It could be a 1 through a 4. But I'm going to remove that, make it a 5. Make this 4 or 5 by removing that die. So now I got 2 5s. I could use these 2 dice to make this a 5. But because the Spartans only have 6 defense, all I have to do is just make 2 dice 5s. I can even add 1 more dice into each, make them 6s to make sure I hit them. So those become 6s, and now the Spartans would be dead. But let's say, well, I'll go over the gods attacking in a minute. But let's say I did get a blank, and I didn't hit well enough to kill the Spartans. So what would happen is, let's say I hit well enough to kill 1 Spartan, and then I do the mighty throw. I throw the Spartans into this space. I can do any space in the surrounding area, and they would drop their Unfollows, which would allow Aries, let's say Aries activated, did an attack, he can then claim it with his next simple action. He could not absorb it because that's a complex action. So he just claimed, if he started in that space of the Spartans, he attacks and now he claims it and follows. And this, the Spartans, having been mighty thrown to the next space, don't even get their attack now. So that's the danger of when you attack a unit with initiative, they get to go first. And if they have mighty throw, they throw you out of the space and they could wound you, and then you don't even get to attack back. Now, I think it does say something about if both of them have initiative, that it's canceled. Yes, it says that here, and I highlighted it in red. If both have this talent, the effect is ignored. Same with block. If both units have block, it doesn't matter. They can still move through each other. So normally, though, with block, you cannot carry out, walk, run, or claim actions if someone has block in the same space. So if Aries is in a space with block and the Spartans want to move out or walk through or claim something, they can't because Aries will block them from doing it. But if the Spartans and Aries both have block, then they cancel each other out. All right, so I'll do a little bit here with some god powers, but let me first finish Aries' action here. So going all the way back to the beginning here, what I originally did. Let me show it on the map. The Spartans had claimed the Symphalos. I did do that attack, a ranged attack. They didn't claim it. And I damaged 2 Spartans. I wounded them. They're out. So now I reset it to where it was before I did the what-ifs. So let's take a look now at what Aries can do. So Aries is in the same situation. Oh, this Hoplite wasn't destroyed. Aries can spend another Art of War card to deploy Aries, and that's the best thing to do because that's the way to win this game. You got to get your divinities, your gods in the game. So Julia's going to spend an Art of War card to do a second activation, brings in Aries. Aries goes into either this zone or this zone. She'll put him there. Now she could spin another Art of War card to draw 2 cards or to search her deck. In fact, she could even, well, she can't do this. I was thinking, can he spend his Art of War card to do Frenzy at the end of Aries' activation, discard 1 Aries activation card, so she does have a second one, for him to make a walk and then attack. Unfortunately, though, because he did a complex action of deploying, he can't do this. So Julie's turn is done. Back to Zeus. All right, so this is Zeus's cards. Zeus draws a card. Okay, got Zeus. That's good. Because Zeus wants to absorb the Omphalos. The Omphalos is over here. If he were to take a simple action, all he can do is claim if he walked in there. To absorb, it's a complex action. So what he's going to need to do, he's going to do a maneuver, spend an activation, an Art of War card, search his deck for a Spartan. He gets it. For his first activation, he spins the Spartan card. He's going to move the Spartan that's left, walk into this space. Now, he can't, if there was a unit in there, remember, he can't attack and then move. So he's just going to walk. And that ends the Spartan's turn, because you can't walk twice. Now, Zeus is going to use his last Art of War card, activate Zeus, do a complex action, and absorb that Omphalos, adds it to the dashboard, and then now the Omphalos goes into Zeus's hand, and that acts like an Art of War card. And so Zeus is done. Now Zeus could use this Omphalos like an Art of War card at the end of the turn and recall these Spartans, but instead he wants to save that. Okay, Aries goes now. Aries draws a card. And Aries looking at the powers here. Well, I don't want to get too detailed with doing another playthrough here. You can watch the playthrough video for that. But I will show you a God versus God power here. By the way, the Hydra powers are Onslaught takes a Art of War card, and it can make an X dice attack against every enemy unit in range. And because the Hydra gets a range of 1 right here, that could be pretty massive here if there's a bunch of units surrounding the Hydra. But also at the end, this is a permanent power. It doesn't matter if the Hydra uses a complex action or not. The Hydra will always heal 1 vitality for free. Oh, and the Hydra has the talent of Torment. If you look on the sheet here, a target unit suffers -1 defense against the range arrow attack of a unit with Torment. So if the Hydra moves into a space with an enemy unit, that unit will be -1 defense. One of the dangers, though, of doing area attacks, let's say Zeus does use his lightning attack, and there are Hoplites in the space. Well, I'll just keep them there. And it'd say Aries is there, but there's also Spartan there. The lightning will also affect the friendly units as well. So that's one of the issues with an area attack. One of the rules also talks about neighboring areas. So neighboring area is every adjacent space around the unit. In terms of terrain, columns, if I were to, you can look on the sheet here. The terrain can affect things. So ruins, you can move through it. It's an obstacle, so it blocks line of sight. So I didn't talk about that. Let's say Zeus does want to target Aries, and Zeus is right here. You go from center to center. Zeus can't see over that rock, so cannot do the lightning attack on Aries here. So, and units also block you. So with these Hoplites here, in this space, Aries cannot be targeted because you cannot see through other units. So keep that in mind too for line of sight. So when it says it's an obstacle, it can block line of sight. So anyways, if a unit's in there, you get +1 defense. So it basically simulates a defender using the column for defense against a ranged arrow attack, not against ranged attacks. And then trees, it's an obstacle, so it blocks line of sight. You get +1 defense against range +1 attack. So if the Hydra was right here, and the Hoplites were in this tree area, because the Hydra is doing a ranged attack, they get +1 defense. So the Hoplites would have a defense of 6 instead of 5 because of that tree. All right, so let me just do real quick a God attack here and see why it's important to get 5s. So let's say Aries is going to attack Zeus. So I'm going to put them right here in the same area. Now, why did I say Aries is going to attack Zeus? Because Zeus knows better that if Zeus goes first, Aries is going to get initiative. And then Aries could hit Zeus, will go first, and could throw Zeus, preventing him from attacking back. By the way, Zeus does get the Patriarch power. If he doesn't do a complex action, he can discard up to 3 cards and get 3 new cards. He also has a leader ability, which means after his activation, he can search his deck for a card. And I'll show you how leader works here. The active player takes an activation card from their deck of a visible friendly troop unit. Now, visible matters because you have to see them. So if Zeus was, again, behind this pillar over here, and he wanted to draw a free card for the Spartans, well, he can't see him because you go from center to center. So you couldn't use that leader power. He has to be he has to be able to see them to use the leader power. In their surroundings, too, they also have to be adjacent. So not only do you have to see them, they also have to be adjacent. So back to that example there, Zeus wasn't even adjacent. But let's say the Spartan was here. You can't see center to center. I'd have to get a situation here where that happens. I'm not too sure. We're on the board where you could be adjacent to somebody and not see them. I'm sure it's possible, but I can't think of a situation like that on this current board. All right, but anyways, so it has to be unit and their surroundings. That means they're all areas adjacent. See, I added that note there because it wasn't in the player aid card. And so a unit whose card has been chosen may be activated immediately by discarding one of its activation cards and without spending an Art of War card. So this is nice for Zeus, that if the unit is adjacent to him and it can see him, they can take the card out of the deck, activate him right away without spending another Art of War card. But that would mean that still counts as 2 activations though. So if Zeus activated, does a leader ability, takes a card out of the deck, activates that unit, that counts as a second activation. The nice thing about it though is that you don't have to spend another Art of War card. What was the other talent? I think I've gone over all talents for this scenario. So back to God versus God. Okay, so Zeus. Aries is going to do a range 0 attack because Aries does not have any ranged attacks. Aries only hits things at range 0, so he has to be in the same space. Oh, by the way, before I forget, I almost forgot this one. If a space is full, so this space here can hold 3 units. The Spartans are here. It doesn't matter if there's 1, 2, or 3. It still counts as 1 unit. You have Achilles here, and let's say Zeus is here. Aries wants to attack into that space. Well, normally you have to walk in and attack, but because it's full, he can attack adjacently. It's not a ranged attack. It's considered a range 0 attack. So let's say Aries does that. So here's Aries. Let's say Aries was damaged a little bit here. He's down to 8. Normally he would have, well, let's get him down to 7. Normally he would have 8, but he only has 7 dice, and he's still at range 0, but he's adjacent with a full space, so he's going to roll 7 dice. Okay? And let's say Zeus was hit a couple times already. Zeus, instead of needing a 9 now, you only need an 8. So I kick the 7 dice for Aries. Aries is going to roll them. Okay, I got 1 blank. So for Mighty Throw, he needed 2 blanks to throw Zeus. It would have been nice for Aries to get 2 blanks because then Aries would still damage Zeus, throw Zeus, and then Zeus would not get his retaliation. But only got 1 blank, so no Mighty Throw. All right, so let's see what we got. I got 1 5. I'm going to make this 4 a 5 by discarding 1 die and making it a +1. I'm going to make this 4 a 5 by discarding this die, making it a +1. And then I'm going to save this die for a +1 on the second assault. This blank goes away. Remember, I need to get 8s to damage Zeus. So if I get a 3, 4, or 5 on these 5s, I'll hit him each time. So I re-roll these, and whatever I roll, I'm going to add to 5. Okay, so I got a 3, so 3 plus 5 is 8, 3 plus 5 is 8. 5 plus 2 is 7. I add in that die I had left over. Doesn't matter, it shows a 3. It's just basically a +1. Could be any side except a 0, a blank, and add +1. So that becomes a 3. So I hit Zeus 3 times. Slides down. Now, Zeus has been hit. He's only going to get 6 dice now. So Zeus rolls. And what does he need to hit? He also did not get any blanks to try to throw Aries. he needs to get 8s as well. So he got 1 5. He puts that to the side. We'll make this 4 a 5 by discarding 1 die as +1. Now he could discard both of these dice to make this 5, which he will do. So he needs 3s or higher. Okay, he did. He hit twice. Now let's say this was a blank though. So you got a 2, 4 and a blank. The blank goes away. That 5 becomes a blank. And so let's say you only hit once. So Aries goes down 1. So that's how gods would attack. That's why you need to get 5s. And you add in dice to make them 5s. And you can keep dice behind so that when you do the second assault, you can use those dice to add even to the second assault roll. Because gods have such high defense. All right, so I think I went over pretty much all the rules for this scenario. There are more terrain right here that are not in this scenario. There's more talents. There's more powers that you would have to look in the rule book here for more explanation. Right now we're just playing with Aries, Zeus, Achilles, and the Hydra. So this is basically the rules for just this introductory scenario. Now the good news is, for those of you who've sticking around to watch, and I appreciate it if you have, is that we're going to play the first campaign, Julie and I, out of the, let me get the book really quick. Out of the compendium. In the compendium, there is a campaign called Against the Gods, right here. And in this campaign book, I got to turn to page 55. You can play cooperatively, and Julie prefers cooperative games. So it says 1 to 4 players. You can even play it solo. So we're going to play all 6 of these as a cooperative game, and it has an AI deck in it. And so we haven't even opened the Pandora's box yet. So we're going to open the Pandora's box, show you what units you need to play these 6 scenarios, and then we're going to play all 6, and we'll review the campaign version of Mythic Battles. So again, I appreciate you sticking through this whole how to play video. I hope it was helpful. If there's a rule I missed, especially when I asked about that issue of units, if you're down to 2, can you still get their talents? So hopefully that will be clarified in Board Game Geek or on the Kickstarter. Check out the playthrough video and the review of just the introductory scenario. We just reviewed that. And we also did the unboxing of the 1.5. So again, we appreciate you when you subscribe and you like the video. And again, we're going to be doing all 6 of that campaign scenario, so I hope you check that out. So I'm David, and this is rpgamepire. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.